Hey guys, so I normally don't make talking videos on here, but this is something I really want to make a video on. So if you guys don't know me, I am a huge Star Wars fan. It's one of my all-time favorite franchises. But I'm also a pretty big Marvel fan. And if you guys are big Marvel fans too, then one thing that you know that Marvel has a lot of is its signature post-credit scenes. If you don't know what a post-credit scene is, let me explain. A post-credit scene is something that plays at the very end of the movie to set up either the next movie or a character that's going to be important later in the series. Or sometimes they'll just have a joke post-credit scene that doesn't really set up anything, and it's just shown just for fun. Now, Marvel isn't the only franchise to do this. Some other movies have done their post-credit scenes for their respective franchises as well. One thing I started thinking about was, what if Star Wars had post-credit scenes? Like, what if they had post-credit scenes that were shown to help set up each movie in their saga? Now, Star Wars has already had post-credit scenes before, but those have only been in recent years, and they really only have been for their TV shows, like The Mandalorian or Andor. But I'm talking about the main movies. Like, what if the movies had post-credit scenes? Now, before we get into this, I just want to say that this video was directly inspired by YouTuber Movie Flame's video, in which he discussed what if the Harry Potter movies had post-credit scenes. His video was pretty cool and interesting, and I recommend you guys check it out. I'll put a link in the description. So, I'm going to go through each Star Wars film and discuss what their post-credit scene would be and how they would set up the next movie in the franchise. And for this, I'm going in release order. So, let's start with A New Hope. Now, in actuality, I don't think A New Hope would have a post-credit scene. Heck, were post-credit scenes even a thing back in the 70s? But let's just say that George Lucas added a post-credit scene in for one of his special edition releases of the film. We know George Lucas loves changing things, right? So, this is how I think the post-credit scene for A New Hope would look. We pan down to the planet of Mustafar. We cut to the landscape of the planet. We pan across the fields of lava to reveal a large castle at the center of the planet. We cut to inside the hangar of the castle, where we see Vader's TIE fighter, showing us where he went after the Battle of Yavin. We cut to one of the hallways of the castle. There is a large door at the end of the hallway. We then slowly start to move towards that door. We begin to hear voices as we get closer. We cut to the room behind the door. We see Darth Vader from the back, on one knee, facing a large hologram of a large figure. However, the figure Vader is facing is out of focus. All we can make out is that this figure is wearing a hood. The figure speaks.
These rebels aren't as weak as we anticipated. Tell me, my apprentice, who was it you said destroyed the Death Star again?
It was a boy.
A boy?
Yes, the Force was strong with him. And I believe Kenobi was in league with these rebels and the boy. And he very much could have been teaching this boy the ways of the Force.
Troubling. And yet, I sense something else in you. What is it, my apprentice?
When I encountered him, there was something I'd felt. Something I'd not felt since...
It matters not. Whoever this boy is, he's nothing but an obstacle. Do not worry, my apprentice. I will discover the identity of this boy myself. For now, gather what we have left for free to hunt down these rebels.
Yes, my master.
Vader bows his head and gets up and leaves the room. As he leaves, all we focus left on is the figure's face and his sinister smile. If you can't tell, I was inspired a lot by the Vader Palpatine scene from Star Wars Rebels and the Thanos post-credit scene from the Avengers. I feel like this treatment would be cool for Palpatine, as he is kind of like the Thanos of this franchise. Also, I think it's a nice payoff since Palpatine was briefly mentioned earlier by Tarkin in the movie.
I have just received word that the Emperor has dissolved the Council permanently.
Also, I wanted to keep Palpatine's face out of focus to create this sort of extra layer of suspense, which I think the Vader Palpatine scene from Star Wars Rebels did great. I think it helps to make first-time viewers extra wary about who this guy is when they first see him. And it wants to make us, the audience, immediately know more about him. And yeah, I know Ian McDiarmid wouldn't have technically played Palpatine at this point because they didn't officially cast him yet until Return of the Jedi. And yes, I know they probably wouldn't have the budget to show Mustafar, but remember, just pretend that this is a part of the special edition. And I know some of you might be thinking that Vader's castle wasn't a thing until Rogue One. Well, actually no. They had planned on giving Vader his own castle all the way back when they were first making Empire Strikes Back. Yeah, they had this shit planned since the 80s. Also, I wanted to show that Vader feels an immediate connection to Luke, even though he doesn't fully know that he's his son yet, because Vader doesn't actually learn that Luke is his son until the comic event that takes place directly after A New Hope, when Boba Fett tells him that his last name is Skywalker. Also, if you're watching the movies for the first time in release order, then this scene would definitely make you question and think what Vader is talking about, because we don't know that Vader is Luke's father yet. All we were told by Obi-Wan was that
he betrayed and murdered your father.
Lastly, I think it's important to show that the Empire hasn't fully been defeated yet, and how most of their fleet is still around, which would answer the question as to why the Empire is chasing after the rebels in the next movie, even though they blew up the Death Star. Speaking of the next film, let's move on to The Empire Strikes Back, and discuss what the post-credit scene for that film would look like. We open on the rebel fleet, just as we left it last. We cut to the inside of one of the ship's hallways. It's dark and quiet. All we hear are faint clicking noises coming from one of the rooms of the hallway. We cut to the inside of one of the rooms. We see a figure sitting on a bed, wearing a black robe. The figure is shown to be the one who is the source of the clicking noises. The figure is working on something. We cut to a close-up shot of the figure's face. It's Luke Skywalker. However, we can't make out his face very well. He is shown to be building something, a lightsaber. We see green and red lights flashing from it as he begins adding the finishing touches to his lightsaber. Suddenly, Luke stops as he hears a voice. Luke flicks a switch on his new blade. We then cut to black as we hear the lightsaber switch on. All we're left with now is the ominous sound of the lightsaber's hum. Now, if you didn't know, this whole scene of Luke building his new lightsaber while his father Vader is calling out to him was actually, believe it or not, a deleted scene from Return of the Jedi, which I use most of the footage and the sounds from. The only big difference is that in the actual deleted scene, Luke builds his lightsaber on Tatooine with R2 and 3PO present. But in my scene, I just put Luke in a dark room on the ship the movie ended with. The reason why this scene was cut was because it gave away the surprise that Luke's lightsaber was going to be green, as this was the first time the audiences saw a green lightsaber in a Star Wars movie. But I feel like putting this scene here in the end credits would actually be way better and a pretty cool tease for the next movie. Also, I didn't show what color his lightsaber was going to be because it's left open to interpretation as to what it could be, as we don't know if Luke is going to join his father or not. Now, for Return of the Jedi, I don't really think it needs a post-credit scene, as the movie has a perfect ending. The only thing that I could think of that would work as a post-credit scene for this movie would probably be Boba Fett escaping the Sarlacc pit, but then again, that just wouldn't work if they weren't making another movie, since Boba Fett doesn't officially return to Star Wars until Season 2 of The Mandalorian, and they don't actually show him escaping the Sarlacc pit until his own show, as seen here. I mean, what they could have done is that they could have had a funny post-credit scene of Boba Fett trying to escape the Sarlacc pit, but then immediately gets eaten again, but that would have just nerfed his character even more. And we already know that Boba Fett got nerfed enough in that movie as it is. Alright, with that all said and out of the way, let's move on to the prequel trilogy. Now, Phantom Menace was by far the hardest film to come up with a good post-credit scene for, as there are just so many different ideas I had thought of in my head, but they all just ended up not working. Like, for instance, First, I thought of a scene of maybe showing Darth Maul's survival, but I think the only way for that to work is if Maul was going to appear in the next movie, and if he was the main antagonist of the prequel trilogy, since Maul doesn't return to Star Wars until Clone Wars, which his arc came out like 12 years later. Then I tried thinking of something like with Dooku, but I feel like Dooku would have had to be a prominent character in the film for it to work, and I feel like what they did with him in Tales of the Jedi was near perfect. But the end credits scene I did end up coming up with, while not as exciting as those two, still, I feel gives off a lot of suspense. We open on Coruscant as we see the Senate office. We cut to inside the building. We see Palpatine walking into his new office for the first time, and he is joined by Mas Amedda and 2 guards. Palpatine sits at his desk for the first time with a big smile on his face. Then, his smile begins to change into a frown. Palpatine begins to speak in a sinister voice. "Leave us." The guards leave the room. Only Mas Amedda stays.
I was elected Chancellor, and yet, even with all this power, I couldn't get her to simply stay. What are we going to do about Naboo? Nothing. We will let the Jedi win this one. They may have won the battle, but they cannot stop the coming war. And what of the Queen? Be patient, my old friend. If I couldn't get her to sign the treaty, there are other ways of dealing with her. And that is? My apprentice will deal with her in time. But, my lord, forgive me if I'm wrong, but Darth Maul is dead. My friend, Maul was never really my apprentice. He was merely a tool. My actual apprentice is someone who has been hiding amongst the Jedi for some time now. And recently, he just found the perfect donor for our army. And that is Darth Tyrannus.
I think showing Palpatine as the Sith Lord in the end credits would be really interesting. And I know some people might think that revealing Palpatine as the Sith Lord in the end credits ruins the twist in Revenge of the Sith, but to be honest, I don't think George Lucas ever intended for that to be a big twist, as Palpatine being the Sith was extremely obvious in Phantom Menace and Attack of the Clones. Also, if you were a fan of Star Wars who came to see this years after Return of the Jedi, and you heard his name was Palpatine, then you would immediately assume that, oh, Senator Palpatine is just the same as Emperor Palpatine from Return of the Jedi. So I think showing this reveal in the post-credit scene would honestly add more suspense. If we as the audience know Palpatine is evil before the characters in the film do, it creates even more tension. It's kind of like Hitchcock's bomb theory. What is Hitchcock's bomb theory, you ask? Well, take a listen.
The essential fact is to get real suspense, you must let the audience have information. Now let's take the old-fashioned bomb theory. You and I are sitting talking, we'll say, about baseball. We're talking for 5 minutes. Suddenly a bomb goes off, and the audience have a 10-second terrible shock.
Learn to know the dark side of the Force, and you will be able to save your wife from certain death.
You're the Sith Lord.
Now, let's take the same situation. Tell the audience at the beginning that under the table, and show it to them, there's a bomb, and it's going to go off in 5 minutes.
There's always a bigger fish.
Who'd have thought?
Chancellor Palpatine is a Sith Lord.
Thank you, Mr. Blow the picture for me.
And we talk baseball. What are the audience doing? They're saying, don't talk about baseball. There's a bomb under there. But they're helpless. They can't jump out of their seats up onto the screen and grab hold of the bomb and throw it out.
I also wrote this post-credit scene with the intent of setting up everything that we're going to see in Attack of the Clones. And yeah, I know that this post-credit scene is very similar to my A New Hope post-credit scene, but then again, Phantom Menace already shares a lot of parallels with A New Hope because, as George Lucas stated,
you see the echo of where it all is going to go. And instead of destroying the Death Star, he destroys the ship that controls the robots. Again, it's like poetry, so if they rhyme.
Now, for Attack of the Clones, the post-credit scene I had written for this movie was just an extension of the scene of Palpatine and Dooku meeting in the hangar from the actual film, except now it's moved to the end credits. And it has something added to the scene. After Dooku and Sidious talk about how the war has begun, after Sidious says,
Excellent. Everything is going as planned.
He then says this, "And how has our newest subject been cooperating, my apprentice?"
"We've done many tests, my lord, but he will be ready in just a few weeks."
"Good. Very good.
"May I see him?" "Yes."
Dooku and Sidious enter a back-to-tank room. Several medical droids stand around the control panels, pressing buttons, looking at the tank in the center of the room. Inside the tank, we see a horribly deformed man, with missing limbs, several droids' parts on him, including half of a terrifying droid mask on his face. Sidious stares at the being menacingly.
"You have done well, my apprentice. He will be the perfect general for our army."
The creature in the tank opens his eyes sinisterly.
"The days of the Jedi are over!"
I think moving the scene with Dooku and Sidious to the end credits with an added scene that teases General Grievous would be really effective. Now, for Revenge of the Sith, the post-credit scene that I had originally wrote ended up getting completely scrapped, as I ultimately didn't like how it turned out. Basically, it was going to be a scene of an older Luke Skywalker finishing reading a book or watching a hologram projection that was showing him all of the events of the prequel trilogy. It was meant to show that the entire prequel trilogy was being viewed through the eyes of Luke Skywalker. I was kind of inspired by the ending of The Hobbit and the Battle of the Five Armies, with it transitioning from young Bilbo to old Bilbo during the events of the first Lord of the Rings movie. But when I finished writing it, I realized that this type of ending just didn't sit right with me, and just didn't fit Star Wars at all. So then I realized that Revenge of the Sith doesn't really need a post-credit scene either, because just like Return of the Jedi, this film exists to be an ending to a trilogy. I guess in retrospect, if you're watching the 4-hour Revenge of the Sith Clone Wars finale fan edit, then I guess you could say that the scene of Vader finding Ahsoka's lightsaber would fit as a post-credit scene, but I digress. Now, for the spin-off movies, I don't really think they need post-credit scenes, as the Clone Wars movie doesn't really need one, and Rogue One directly leads into A New Hope, and for Solo, I guess you could just put the Darth Maul scene as the post-credit scene. I mean, it feels like a post-credit scene on its own, and would totally work, even if the scene wasn't setting up anything significant. Alright, so that's all the Star Wars movies, all 9 of them. There aren't any other Star Wars films to come out because there are only 9 of them. Because, like I said before, Return of the Jedi worked really well as the final film. And ending to the Star Wars saga.